It's 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific time on Friday, so you know what time it is. It is like 108 degrees Fahrenheit here. Sweating time. I was thinking of that Tom Petty song, Free Fallin'. In a heat like this, instead of singing Free Fallin', think of Free Ballin'. Just go sans underwear because it is so blooming hot. Yep, 100 and 108 degrees Fahrenheit. And I don't know what that is in Celsius, but is unbelievably hot. So on the rocks today. So let's say hello to everyone who is tuning in. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Judith Stoll, thank you very much for tuning in. Paul M., Steve Crabtree, Mike Bennett, thank you very much. So the Macallan Distillery. I don't know if you guys watch the latest live stream from Roy. He's talking about the basic theme of it had to do with planning trips to go to Scotland as things, we sort of get through this COVID season and things start slowly, incrementally to return to normal. Here in California today, Cal OSHA, has now agreed with the CDC, Center for Disease Control, regarding the issue of not having to wear masks and so forth. So I got a memo today at work, not to wear masks. So boom, no masks at work. So there was a little bit of conflict there between state rules and whatever else. Hopefully, Lord willing, we won't have something else come up. Hopefully this is going to be working. Now, of course, the requirements are, I don't want to spend time talking about COVID. You have to have had both your shots 2 weeks after your second shot, and so forth. Now, how they're going to tell who did and didn't get it, I don't know, but whatever. All right. So what I'm going to pour myself, this is the Macallan. I used to say Macallan, and people got really annoyed. I said Macallan. In my early days, I said the Macallan. Well, it's C-A-L-L, call. Call on the telephone. You don't say Cal. Macallan and would be M-A-C-A-L, not L-L. Anyway, so this is the 2017 limited edition. And I will share my notes on this shortly. Uriel Ben Avram Brown. Shabbat Shalom. Shalom Aleichem. Havenu Shalom Aleichem. Anyway, so I'm pouring myself a little bit. Whiskey with Two Jerks. I didn't notice, Mr. Whiskey with Two Jerks, that you have a very close proximity familiar. You look very much like a guy named Ralphie over in Scotland. Your little icon there looks very much like Ralphie. I don't know if anybody's ever pointed that out or not. G-Man, thank you much for tuning in. So Roy was talking about returning to Scotland, planning your trips, and tips for planning trips. He happened to mention my name a couple of times during the live stream. So I've been over there twice, 2018, 2019. On my first trip to Scotland, June 2018, the Macallan new distillery opened up. I think it was like June 2nd, June 3rd, whatever. And like 2 weeks later, I actually visited the distillery. So in case you guys don't know, my whiskey journey began with the Macallan 12 years old. You may have already heard this story before. Basically, I was not into spirits. I was not planning to get into spirits. I was studying for one of the units for the Wine Spirit Educational Trust, which was on spirits. So I bought a bunch of little minis, rum, vodka, gin, bourbon, Irish whiskey, and of course a Macallan 12-year-old. And when I had that Macallan 12-year-old, what I was used to is wines at 13.5, port wines 18 maybe, but I was used to wines. And so when I had that Macallan 12-year-old, I don't have, the video is not up on my channel anymore, but it would actually recorded it because when you open a mini, you don't do neck pour off camera and then do what you do with a regular bottle. You take the top off, you pour yourself whatever you got there. That's what you're going to be drinking. That's what we're going to be reviewing. So I had no prior experience with the Macallan before I started recording, before I hit the record button. So I'm smelling this, I'm trying this, and I was just like, wow. I was not accustomed to, in comparison to wine, the intensity and concentration and complexity of a whiskey. Now, obviously, it was my first Scotch that I know of. I think I had a peated whiskey when I was in high school, and it was like, ooh, that's nasty. At a friend's house, we tried it, and then we're like, oh, that's nasty, so we moved on. But that was my introduction into Scotch whiskey. 6 months later, I'm in Kentucky, traveling around distilleries. 2 years later, I'm in Scotland, and 5-6 years later, I've moved on. So during the live stream, and I mentioned Macallan, he had Scotch in the Bayou on, and then he had a gentleman on who provides guidance for doing just touring Scotland. Nice. And he recommended going to the Macallan distillery. Before I get further on, I'm going to share my notes on this whiskey real quick. Hold on. Before I go any further. So this is the 2017 Macallan Classic Cut. The first in a new series of annual releases. The Macallan Classic Cut 2017 release has been matured exclusive. Excuse me, I should hit the cough button on that. Exclusively in handpicked sherry seasoned American and European oak casks from Jerez, Spain, bottled at 58.4% alcohol by volume. So that's what I'm currently drinking. Anyway, as I was saying, so Roy had this gentleman on, and they're talking about visiting the Macallan distillery, and he made a comment that's like the Disneyland distillery. And some people in the chat made negative comments about Macallan, the distillery. If it's become the Macallan distillery, then I'm not going to visit that, and so forth. Now, you can have whatever opinion you want. You can go visit distillery whatever you want. You can drink whatever you want, or not drink whatever you want. Don't really care. But the whiskey that introduced me to the world of whiskey was not a Springbank. Love Springbank, been to Springbank Distillery. It's very old school, very rustic. The only thing that's computerized, I think, is the cash register, right? That's it. They probably do, maybe they do their banking accounts and that kind of thing, but everything's manual and in-house. And we like that. We like the old school, rustic, the old way of doing it, the traditional way of doing it, hardcore, that kind of thing. Ben Romick, very similar. Ben Romick, not in terms of the style of the whiskey necessarily, but in terms of how they do things. Ben Romick, I would say, is like the Springbank of the North. Love Springbank, love Ben Romick. But it's not Springbank or Ben Romick who are introducing whiskey to the world. You're never going to find a Springbank in a little tiny mini bottle that someone can pick up as a sampler. You're never going to find Springbank in your typical hotel bar or on an airplane, right? You're just not. It's the big boys. Of course, even more than single malts, it's really the blended scotches that are introducing the world to Scotch, right? Whether you're talking about your Johnny Walkers and so forth. But in terms of single malt, introducing people to single malt, it's the big boys who are evangelizing globally single malt. And that's why they're so popular. And now we can complain about and make fun of and make jokes about the marketing. And I have a video. I made fun of their make the call video about the guy jumping off a cliff and all that. So I have no disagreements with anybody who thinks Macallan has gone overboard with the marketing shtick. And it's very, very clear who they are marketing towards and addressing and so forth. It's about image. It's about the luxury image. In fact, in their advertising, the word luxury will sometimes actually come up. So I have no disagreements there. But as I said, if you guys didn't see the live stream I did with Daniel Weddington a couple weeks ago, and we talked about craft versus the whiskey business, and I provided this chart of both, and both craft. I would say Springbank is craft, and how we think of craft. Macallan is the big business, right? I can't remember. I think it was somewhere around 360 million, something like that, that they built the new distillery on. But it is the big business that is evangelizing whiskey. And then as people get, a certain percentage of people will move on to beyond the image into other whiskeys, into Springbanks and into, you name it, whatever your favorite distillery is, the Ardbegs, right? But not only is it the Macallan, really, among others, that are introducing Scotch whiskey around the world, but a particular profile of Scotch whiskey. So I have it pinned up here. When you think of sherry cask Scotch whiskey, I don't know if you can see the whole thing. What distilleries? Those are in the chat, or after, if you watch this on the replay. So I put on there, when you think of sherry cask Scotch, what distilleries come to your mind? So right now in the chat, if you haven't already, what distilleries, when you think of sherry cask whiskeys, what comes to your mind? What really goes? Who has the reputation of sherry cask whiskeys? Grumpy Old Fart says the Macallan might be a person's first Scotch experiment. What was your first wine, red wine or white? Oh, so the first white wines really, well, in terms of what sparked me was when I was visiting wineries in Temecula, California, which is not like the most high-end place for wines in California. It's in Northeast San Diego County. But it was the beauty of the wine country that caught my attention, not the wines, right? But very early, I was a big fan of Robert Mondavi. It was one of the first distilleries, wineries I ever visited in the Napa Valley. All right, so got some answers here. Steve A says Macallan or Macallan. Glendronach, Tamdu, exactly. Silver Lock Whiskey Club says Glendronach. Edward Dower. Let me start clicking on some of these in the chat. Let's bring some of these up here. So Steve A, Macallan, Glendronach. Silver Lock Whiskey Club, he says Glendronach. Edward Dower, definitely Edward Dower. Timothy says Farkless. Of course, that's Glen Farkless. Okay, Paul M says Glenallachie or Glenallachie. Glenallachie. Now, Glenallachie. Now, let's talk about this. Is Glenallachie long time known, developed a reputation for sherry cask whiskeys, or is it Glenallachie just now coming onto the radar of everybody? Because Whiskey in the Six, Scotch Test Dummies, and others. A lot of people right now. I haven't done any reviews of any Glenallachie. I'm waiting till I actually visit the distillery. Right. Eventually, I'm hoping to be up there May 2022. So, is that because that's what's hot now and what you know now, or out of a long-term reputation of developing the profile of sherry cask whiskeys? All right. Let's see. Glendronach, definitely. Whiskey with Two Jerks, definitely Glendronach. I would totally agree with that. Timothy Juarez, Glenmorangie. Yes, particularly Glenmorangie in terms of cask finishings and stuff like that. Absolutely. Glenmorangie, Glenlivet, Aberlour. That was the other one that was on my mind. Aberlour, absolutely. Aberlour. And I would say with Aberlour, particularly in the way in which they combine bourbon cask and sherry cask, is that they do a finished sherry and a finished bourbon cask, and then figure out what percentages they want to blend afterwards. It's the way that wine is blended. So that in particular, yeah. So he says, I think Glenallachie as of recent. Exactly. So who has the? Maybe I should better rephrase. This is what you think of, but what has the global reputation, who expanding the global image of sherry cask whiskeys? Another good question. It says the question should be, what is the chat's first scotch? Well, that's a whole nother question. The purpose is, so in case you don't know, doing a series on sherry and sherry cask finished whiskeys, right? So, but that, that is also a good question, because was your first, I mean, for some people, if you had a friend that was really into whiskey and they had you try a Springbank or a Glen Scotia, okay, but that's the rarity. If you're out milling around the world, traveling around, you're at a hotel, you're at a party, you're at a business dinner, something like that, right? What is it that's going to get, someone's going to pop the cork and break out, right? Macallan is going to be up there, particularly since its image, particularly at a business meeting, you're at dinner, you're dealing with clients, perhaps from Japan, from Japan. And so when you're doing business with Japanese businessmen, you don't talk business right away. You first have dinner for a couple of night meetings for dinner a couple of times, and then you have some drinks, and then some more drinks, and you have some wine, and then more drinks, and then you get to the whiskeys, and then maybe you talk business later. You don't just jump into business. Same thing a lot of times with Chinese business people, particularly wines. They love Bordeaux. It's Macallan, or Macallan, as I used to like to call it. It has a classic look. It has a name. They branded themselves really, really well. So they have that reputation and image, and familiarity, right? And the familiarity. And so we could poo-poo. We can poo-poo, some of the schlock, some of the sticks, some of the rest. But let's get to the distillery as well. Let's talk about the distillery and the Disneyland-esque of the distillery. Now, in the Napa Valley, there's a couple wineries that have that same sort of thing. So there's one called Castillo de Amorosa, means the Castle of Love. They spent 15 years, probably around, I don't know, maybe not that, maybe 10 years. They spent around $25 million building a castle. And it's like, a real castle, similar to something they would have in Italy. And a lot of the locals, because I know a lot of people in the Napa Valley, they stick their nose up at it. Oh, that's the Disneyland. Napa Valley is going Disneyland. Another one is Dariouche. Dariouche has like this Persian palace, right? And I had tasted the wines, and it was a 97 vintage. I was probably tasting it in around 2000. You could pick them up for $30. And they were selling them out of a trailer. Then they spent, I don't know how many millions and millions and millions. They imported stone from Persia, from Iran, and built this Persian palace. It's an amazing, amazing place. And now their Cabernet Sauvignon's like probably $90, triple the price. All right. So in the Napa Valley, there's a couple wineries that have that people call the Disneyland, and people, because Napa Valley is now the number one tourist destination in the state of California. People start getting all uptight and getting them wild, and they complain, the locals, about Napa Valley going Disneyland, right? Going too touristy, right? They're not complaining about all the money that's coming in. They're not complaining about all the money that's coming in and how much business it brings in. They don't like that kind of image. All right. But I think the same sort of thing is going on with Macallan, is that sort of image. Now, I put together a short little video clip, sort of an overview of taking a tour of the distillery. So I'm going to show it to you. And then at the very end, they have 6 pillars. The 6 pillars. This is one of the 6 pillars, which is their emphasis on the cask. Let me bring this up. And it's only like 2.5 minutes. All right. So here we go. Our exceptional oak casks are the single greatest contributor to the outstanding quality, natural colors, and distinctive aromas and flavors of the Macallan. These oak casks are crafted to our own specifications and account for up to 80% of the final aromas and flavors of the Macallan. Because of this, we spend more per cask than any other distillery in sourcing, crafting, seasoning, and caring for its casks. I'm on mute. Steve A, thank you very much. I was on mute. All right. Let me restate what I just said. Okay, so I was on mute. I muted myself while the video was playing. I'm sorry. I apologize. All right, we're back at. All right. So I'm an independent whiskey reviewer. If you notice, I don't bring on reps. I've only free bottles I've ever received. Heather Green sent me bottles from Milam and Green. I've gotten some free bottles from Iron Root Distillery, but I haven't reviewed them or opened them or done anything with them. They're still sitting over here. So generally speaking, I don't accept free bottles. I don't get free bottles. I don't ask free bottles. And I don't bring on reps. I had the gentleman who's a manager of reps from Teeling Distillery. I had Frank, Big Frank. I had him on, and we had a great time. But Frank freely talked about other whiskeys he liked and things other than Teeling Distilleries. One of the things about reps, and I'm not real big on, is it turns into an infomercial. Ardbeg Day was a couple weeks ago. And so Ardbeg Distillery, I'm a fan of Ardbeg. They were doing these back-to-back videos talk about, and Bill Lumsden was on there talking about Ardbeg. And it was basically one long infomercial. I tuned in when Bill Lumsden was on there, watched a little bit, but I felt like it was scripted. And, you know what I mean? I prefer an outsider perspective. So I think as an outsider, someone who isn't being given free bottles, isn't paid, I can give my free perspective. But I think I try to be as honest as I can to give an honest perspective, a balanced perspective on the pros and cons of whatever distillery, whatever. What I like about Macallan is, number one, it was my first love, right? If your first girlfriend was too expensive, right? Some women are that way, or boyfriends, whatever you got. They can be very high maintenance. I've had one of those. High maintenance, right? It can be the same. Yeah, I'm not getting the best bang for the buck. Ba-dum-bum. And that could mean a whole nother thing. We're talking about whiskeys, or we're talking about, your boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other. A different bang for the buck. So, and you can complain about that, right? You're not complaining about the bang. You're just complaining about the buck. So I like Macallan because it's global. I like Macallan because they do make whiskey known. I think it is a very high quality whiskey. I'm willing to bet if anybody was given a bottle for free or given just a dram of whiskey for free, and you weren't even told what it was, you would say you would like it. You would like it. It's only how much money it costs that we're sort of complaining about, right? But they don't add any coloring. All their coloring comes from the cask. Age statements. Generally speaking, their whiskeys are age statements. This is an exception. This is the closest thing you're going to get to a cask strength at 58.4% alcohol by volume. Now I have over here, this is a 2020 release. I haven't even opened it yet. I'll probably open it shortly and do a neck pour. There's a local whiskey shop here. I dropped in to say hello. I wanted to pick up another Macallan bottle, so I picked this up. This goes for anywhere between $120 and $130, right? I paid $120 for it. So we'll see whether it's worth it or not. It's 100. The problem is it's 108 degrees today. When it's 100, and I have the AC cranked. Trying to judge a whiskey when you're sweating and it's hot. I should have a fan blowing from underneath it. It's so bloody hot. This is not the best weather for judging whiskey, right? That's why I'm drinking this on the rocks and enjoying it as a drink. But this is not how I would review it. And if you put it on the rocks, you need something more high ABV. But let me go ahead and open this up a little bit. Let me open this up and get something poured so we can spend perhaps a little bit of time. Ooh, okay. Cracked open real nice and easy. So let me put a little bit in here, and I'm going to put neat a little bit of the 17. Now, the 17 obviously been open for a while. You know, we're getting close down to the bottle, so it's not fair that way. This is a neck pour, so it's not fair that way. So put it in that, take it in this context. But I'm going to do a side-by-side, a neck pour of the 2020 versus a 2017 that's been open for a while. See if there's a significant difference. Now, Rob over at Whiskey in the Six, by the way, the 2020 is at 55%, and the 2017 is at 58.4. So it's a little bit lower in ABV, but still it's in that ballpark of being similar to a cask strength whiskey. Okay, I just poured. I'm going to keep these straight. 2020, 2017, neat. So Rob Whiskey in the Six does a lot of videos on the Macallan. Check out their stuff, as well as Jeremy over Social Sipper Club. Social Social Club? Social Strippers Club, whatever it is. Or it is, all right. He's done a lot of reviews. I would say he has, in terms of the whiskeys themselves, they probably have a more in-depth perspective and time interaction with them. I got introduced to Scotch whiskey through the Macallan. Liked it. I bought a 12-year-old and then moved on to other whiskeys. But about Macallan, they're global, no added coloring. They do offer this higher ABV bottling, 120 to 130 bucks. A lot of the age statement ones are actually a lot more expensive than these ones. If you're going to buy a Macallan, you can get the 12-year-old for about 70 bucks in my neighborhood. I would recommend checking out this one because it's higher ABV. But let me make a comment about visiting the distillery. So I visited it 2 weeks after it had been open. I really loved the tour. I really, really liked it. My tour guide was the Whiskey Rev. If you watching Roy Aquavite, Whiskey Rev is a friend of Roy's, and that's how I got to know him. And he works at the distillery. Super knowledgeable guy, really, really nice guy. Fantastic tour. Is it Disneyland-like? Yes. Very high tech, very modern. You saw the photos, you saw the video there. But how does it do in terms of presenting whiskey and teaching people, introducing people to whiskey in terms of the tour? You can't tell from the video. I think it does an excellent job about teaching people about the whiskey making process in a way that's engaging, entertaining, and I like low tech. I can go to the small craft winery where the guys, there's a winery up in Sierra Foothills, Montaliva. He's basically making wine out of his garage, right? As well as the big fancy Darius or Robert Mondavi or Castillo d'Amoroso. I like them all. In fact, if you're going to understand whiskey, I think you need to know the full spectrum of whiskey and understanding the whiskeys themselves as well as the producers and everything else. When I've studied under Masters of Wine as well as Master Sommeliers, and I was at a conference led by Institute Masters of Wine from the Institute of Masters of Wine, and one of the things they said is this is the Institute of Masters of Wine, not the Institute of the Masters of Fine Wine, which means you need to know the jug wines and understand them, right? So they might take you and do a tour in the process of studying, become a master of wine. You go do a tour to a winery, California, and you're going to Gallo in the Central Valley. I think it's near Modesto in the Central Valley. And you think, Gallo, man, why can't we go to Screaming Eagle, right? The bottle sell for probably $500 on release. Why can't we go to, some of these high-end wineries? Why can't we go to those? Because they are very, very, very small representation of the world of wine in a similar fashion, very similar fashion. Super small craft distilleries are very small representation of the world of whiskey. So in my studies of whiskey, I want to know the full gamut and be able to appreciate both the craft and the big boys and what they contribute to the world of whiskey, and have sympathy for the small producer who is putting out whiskey too early because he needs the money and can't afford to sit on his cask for too long. I'm sympathetic towards it. Doesn't mean I have to like the whiskey. Just means I'm sympathetic to the reason why he's doing such short turnaround. And it makes me understand why. In fact, if I was going to do a startup distillery, I'd go to Texas because you're going to get a quicker turnaround. But also recognize that Macallan serves a function and a purpose and a place in the world of whiskey. Do I want all distilleries to be like Macallan? Hell no. Hell no. But it has its place. And in terms of the context of this current study of sharing shared cask finished whiskeys, so I did reviews of Fino and Fino sherry cask whiskeys, Manzanilla, Amontillado, and now we're in the middle of doing Oloroso. And more likely, when you're talking Macallan, the sherry cask, even if they don't say Oloroso, it's Oloroso. To understand the spectrum of sherry cask whiskeys, the distilleries, notice that some of the distilleries that are mentioned when I ask this question, when you think of a sherry cask sherry cask scotch, what do you think of? A lot of the same distilleries come to our minds. And it is Glendronach. In terms of developing a world reputation of sherry cask whiskeys, it is Glendronach. It is Macallan. Now, Bunnahabhain 12-year-old, right? Love the Bunnahabhain 12-year-old. Heavily sherry cask whiskey off of Islay. Love it. Peated sherry cask, right? Udall from Ardbeg. Love it. But those aren't the whiskeys that are showing up in a movie on a shelf in the background, or some actor in a TV show or movie doing this, right? That's what has the brand image, the image that they want to put into the hand of James Bond or some other actor in a movie is going to be something like Macallan. Now, one other thing I want to say about Macallan, completely side element, I like the way the bottle feels. It's not, if you look at it, it's oval. It's not round. It's oval. I like when you grab it, I like the way it feels, right? These are some of the newer bottles. The labeling is clear. I like the style. I know this has nothing to do with the content of the whiskey. I like the classic feel. I like the feel of it. I like the lettering. I like the clarity of it. I like the transparency of it, and so forth. So really the only, if I saw complaints or critiques I would have of it is price, which people have already complained about before. And they aren't targeting me. It's not my demographic they're targeting. But that goes the same thing for wines. I'm the wine professional. wineries are not targeting sommeliers, right? Um, I'm becoming, you might say, I'm almost becoming a whiskey professional in my terms of experience and education, and eventually my feet will be at least part time in the industry. By the way, um, by the way, I'm going to be moving within a month. I'm going to be moving out to the wine country. Uh, I'll go into details later. I haven't figured out the logistics to move into another house, another place. But basically, I'm moving west, and I'm going to be in the Sonoma area in the wine country. But that's a whole nother story. I'll talk about that later some other time. And so I will be probably reviving a lot of my interactions in the wine world, friends in the wine world. I'll be 15 minutes from a winery that I have consulted for. I'll be 15 minutes away from a friend of mine who's a master of wine who works in a winery out there. So anyway, it's a big change coming on. Christopher Malloy, thank you very much. So I'm really looking for, moving is a pain in the ass. Moving is a pain in the ass. First fill whiskey. Come even more west to Central Otago, New Zealand. Central Otago, man. You Pinot Noir country. I would love. Oh, hey, I just realized first fill whiskey. Hey, how you doing, man? Hey, by the way, hey, let me bring up here real quick. First fill whiskey. There we go. There we go. If you guys haven't subscribed to First Fill Whiskey, check out his channel. Phil, I'd love to have you on one of these days. So I'm going to be in the Sonoma, Santa Rosa area. So Russian River runs through there. It's the Russian River Pinot Noir. You're talking Pinot Noir country. But anyway, so if you guys haven't checked out First Fill Whiskey, I would say killer channel for introducing people to the basics of whiskey. Number one. Number two, his background is in video and photography. And so the quality of his videos is fantastic. And he has a really cool accent, right? If you can't get someone with a Scotch accent, go for a New Zealand accent. All right. So check him out. And his channel is he doesn't post that often, but he does really high quality videos. So check him out. All right. So many days like that. I know our time zone stuff can be a little challenging being Arizona versus being here, but we'll work it out one of these days. All right. See, AC6 says, congrats. Sounds like a good thing. I'm looking forward to it. I'm a little nervous going into it. Changes are always challenging, but I'm looking forward to it. There are also some distilleries out there, but I'm more looking forward to getting back into the wine world. I'm not leaving the whiskey world, trust me. But I'm looking forward to hosting events, having sommelier friends over. I actually have like cupboards. I probably have 30 or 40 wine glasses that I can throw a big shindig wine event at my house. But because of the COVID crap, I haven't been able to. But since I'm moving into the wine country, I'll be in the community, in the Somm community out there. So anyway, but I digress. I'm getting up. All right. Mike Bennett says, congrats. Thank you very much, Mike. All right. So getting back to Macallan. So I think Macallan has its pluses. It has its minuses, as any other distillery does. I like them. I'm not stocking up on them for the various reasons already covered, which is the amount of money you're going to spend. I will probably one of these days buy a bunch of Macallans and do an entire lineup of the core range of Macallan when I get around to it. One of these days. One of these days I'll do it. Now let's get into these two. By the way, this is the Macallan number 6. I got this from the Scotch 4 Dummies. They bought the Lalique, the Leak version, which goes for $5,000-$6,000, and then they had not an auction. Was it auction or raffle? No, it was an auction. It wasn't a raffle. So I got 2 of these. I've already reviewed one, and I've got another one of these. Anyway, this is the Leak. I would like to do a side-by-side, compare this with a Glendronach, but let's save that for another time. So they do the Lalique. The Lalique decanters alone cost a couple thousand. Cost $1,500, probably $1,500. So even an empty Lalique decanter is $1,500 plus, plus the whiskey. All right. So let's get into these whiskeys. First of all, I'm glad I kept it straight. So this is the 2020. This is the 2017. They're not both neck pours, so you got to keep that in mind. Color-wise, the 2017, I don't know if you can pick it up, looks slightly darker. It looks slightly darker. It's a non-age statement, so we don't know what the age is on them. We do know they don't add coloring. So what we got there is natural. So this one looks, I don't know if it shows up. I don't know how that shows up. It's slightly darker. 2017. It's a beautiful, elegant nose. Moderate intensity of classic sherry notes. Ooh. So I would say this. I'm getting a lot more vanilla on the 2020 than I am. No, excuse me. Shit. Did I mix these up? Shit. I may have mixed these up. I think I may have screwed up. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? Hold on. I may have screwed up. I think I may have mixed them up. So I'm going to start from scratch. This whiskey will not go to waste. I will drink this after the camera. I don't know if I mixed it up or not. So I may have mixed them up. For the sake of, okay. Start again, 2017. Just because I might have screwed up. I don't want to risk. I'd rather get this accurate. So I'm repouring. So 2017, 2020. 2020. 2017, 2020. Talking and try to do this at the same time, it's like doing this. Rub your head and pat your stomach at the same time. Okay. So now that I know, in my mind, I thought I might have somehow screwed up. All right. Yep, I didn't mix them up. Okay, again, I can tell. Okay. Sorry. It happens when you get old. You get a little confused there when you're going on there. All right, so no, I was right. So the one on my right, the 2017, is a little darker. The one on my left, the 2020, is a little lighter in color. So now I know I didn't screw up. But in my head, I wanted to be sure. All right. Ooh, it's opening. Ooh. I'm getting more vanilla off the 2020. It's like a scented candle. Incense. What's that wood? There's a certain real incense smelling wood. They use it inside of Buddhist temples. If you know what I'm talking about, put it in there and pick it up. It's like an incense smelling wood. It's almost like space. It's almost like a spicy smelling wood. I hate it. My brain is going blank. Loads of vanilla, nice spice. Come on, you might use it for you might put some in your closet. Sandalwood. Yes. Timmy Juarez, sandalwood. Thank you. Timmy Juarez. Yes, sandalwood. Thank you. Somebody got it. All right. Yes, sandalwood. Now everybody jumps in and says, yeah, it's sandalwood. So I'm getting more fruit notes. I'm getting more vanilla note. I'm getting more caramels, sandalwood. Ooh, man. The vanilla is intense on that. And like a vanilla bean. I'm getting much more of the distinctively sherry cask off of the 17. I'm not getting those intense vanilla notes. I'm getting intense vanilla notes off of the 2020. Now, it may be due to when they were opened, how long they've been opened. It also may be So in sherry, they use both American and European oak, right? Traditionally, Spain has used American oak. I know there's a lot of other people out there that say something different. They're wrong. Okay. We're talking about hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. Rioja, Ribera del Duero, right? The Penedès, right? Jerez is used American oak. The use of European oak is a new thing, right? Because of the Spanish coming over here and settling here in the United States, it goes that far back, right? The Spanish were some of the early settlers, particularly here in California. That's how far back it goes. And American oak is cheaper, and it gives them the profile they want. So if I was going blind on this, I would say this has more American oak than this one does. But there's so much else going on. You could be wrong. What I'm really liking about this is the sherry notes is elegant, it's delicate, it's not a smack in the face, even though these are at 55 and 58% alcohol by volume. They're not overwhelming. They're not sherry bombs. So the Glendronach 18-year-old Allardyce is darker, earthier than this. And yet I'm sure this is 100% sherry cask, not bourbon cask. Really nice spice. Baked apples, baked pears. Canned pears and canned apples. The vanilla is now starting to show up more on the 17. All right, let's try it on the palate. Wow. Ooh. Now, being this hot today, even though I got the AC on, your perception of alcohol is going to be jacked. The alcohol, when your body is warm and the room is warm, even though I have the AC cranked, I'm sweating. All right. Your perception of alcohol is going to be exaggerated. You have to be aware of yourself. This is why whiskey tastes best in a warehouse where it's nice and cool and the air smells lovely because you got all the angel share. The alcohol seems exaggerated, but I'd say one, it's a high ABV whiskey, 55 plus. I'm warm, but it's silky, it's rich, it's delicate, it's delicate, it's elegant. Evolution is moderate. The sherry cask, fig dates, raisins, it's more front. Vanilla comes in about 3/4 in the way back, and it carries into the finish and has a real long finish. It is a beautiful, lovely whiskey. When I bought this, if I recall, I'm going by memory. When I bought the 2017, I think it was like $90. I could be wrong, but I think it was around $90. Let me see. Did I put the price on that? Let me see here. No, I didn't include the price. I didn't include the price on there. Sorry. I'm going by memory. I think it was $90. They just reversed. I don't know if you heard or not, but they just reversed the tariffs between the UK and the United States. They now agreed a 5-year moratorium on the tariffs. I have my doubts we're going to see a reduction in price in whiskey, Scotch whiskeys, and single malts. Actually, blended Scotches weren't tariffed. The single malts are. I don't think we're going to see a turnaround in the price. I don't think we're going to see it. All it means is the producers, the middlemen, are going to make more money. Because once you got the money, you never give it back. It's one of the rules of Ferengi, rules of acquisition. All right. Neat the 2020. Let me drink some water real quick. I'm going to drink all this. I'll finish all this after live stream. I'll put some more ice in this to finish all this. Really different. Wow. I wish these were both neck pours, or I wish they'd both been open for the same amount of time, so there'd be even comparison. Because that particular factor I have to keep in mind. 2020 is buttload of more vanilla, but I would say from my memory of having this before when I first had it, yeah, as I see 86 says, inflation is going to keep prices higher as well. I agree. Or inflation and the deflation of the value of the dollar. Totally agree. Totally agree. Right. I don't remember the Macallan Classic at 2017 having a boatload of vanilla. This has the vanilla is almost stronger than the sherry cask influence. And I'm actually surprised by that. I was expecting more of the traditional sherry cask influence, but the vanilla is just really kicking in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a video of a side-by-side comparison, but I need to wait a couple weeks. I'll get this bottle down below the shoulder. I get it down about the label, right? And then I'll do a side-by-side between these two and compare them. Maybe I can see if I can contact Rob Whiskey in the Six and see if he wants to do something together on this on so much. But excuse me. I think he's done. He has more bottles than I do. He's tried more vintages than I have. But there's definitely a flavor profile drift, even despite the fact that one's been open longer than the other. I still think there's still going to be a significant difference between the two. Now, which one do I prefer? I prefer the 2017, hands down. It's an unfair comparison. I keep saying this over and over and over again. I think 2017, as is now, compare it. When I do a review side by side later on, I'll make a comment on what it was like earlier and what is then when I try it again. I think you get more of the sherry cask influence. I think you're getting potentially more European oak than American oak. You're getting more of the Old Oyster sherry influence. 2020, I think I'm getting much more of an American cask, typical American cask influence of the heavy vanilla. The dried fruit notes there are there. It's heading more over into peach and apple than the dried black fruit notes. So it's heading more into apple and peaches territory than it is into dried black fruit notes. It's also and citrus. It's heading more into a vanilla bomb rather than a sherry bomb, and heading more into dried citrus rather than dried black fruit notes. Now, that being said, if I go to someone's house, hey, Eric, how you doing? Let me give you a dram. If someone give you a dram, I would be happy with either one of these. I'm being nitpicky here, but I would love either one of these. I think either one of these is really, really nice. And you may actually prefer something that's a little more vanilla forward, right? I'm talking about what I prefer versus quality wise. I think they're equal in quality in terms of layers of flavor, development, and the depth. I think you are definitely getting a different profile here between these two whiskeys. So, it's funny talking about the neck pours. Daniel and Rex did a video on the neck pour thing. Funny, Daniel said when I had him on a couple of weeks ago, he was actually thinking of my comments about neck pours when they recorded the video, which I thought was kind of funny. So there could be a difference. So within a couple of weeks, I will try to do when I get this down below about the label. I'll do another side by side in comparison between the two. But alrighty, so we're heading to the top of the hour in just a few minutes. There is a certain mentality. People like to dump on things and dump on people, there are people who get their jollies out of hating someone or hating something. I was talking to Daniel offline on a phone call. We were talking about stuff, and he says there's all these people who try to get you to hate someone. Oh, what do you think about? I hate them. Right? I've seen this happening. I see this happening just a little bit in the whiskey tuber world. I don't like it. I can disagree with everyone and still like them and see the pros and cons. There can be people this part about them I don't like, but I like this about them, right? And I'm hoping people treat me the same way. There's going to be some things about me you're not going to like. If you have to live with me or hang out with me on a daily basis, you'd go, sometimes Erik can be a bendejo, right? Sometimes he gets on my nerves. Sometimes, everybody has their pros and cons. And I think the same thing with these whiskeys. They have their place. I like what they're doing. I like the whiskeys. Now, if I'm talking bang for the buck and quality price ratio, which for most of us consumers, you got to admit, those of us, we are this much of the consumers. We are not representative of the average consumer. We are the nerds and the geeks of whiskey. We are. The average person who drinks whiskey, comes home and has a whiskey, does not watch whiskey tubers, right? So we are the people who are super uber geeky about whiskey and get that nitpicky about things and watch whiskey tubers and compare and da-da-da-da. And so you're my peeps, because that's what we do. So we are on the hunt for the high quality price ratio whiskeys. For us, it's not an occasional thing. Most people who buy these whiskeys, they're not coming home every day and having whiskey. Hey, they're having some friends over. It's a special event. Let's have some whiskey. That's how often they're drinking whiskey. They don't have this, right? They don't have this. To them, this seems insane, right? Hey, dude, you should open a bar. Sean Weatherly says, we all have our own special kind of crazy. IC86 says, I don't get the neck pour issue. Just invert the bottle 3 times, says me and the chemistry degree. I got news. That's a whole nother side discussion. Right. So, so the funny thing was, when I was talking to Daniel at the end of the discussion, and we were saying goodbye, I said, hey, Daniel, I hate you. It's the new I love you. The other someone else is to say I hate you, because there's so many people who get off on being a hater, and they make negative comments, in the videos, or they try to pit this whiskey tuber against this whiskey tuber, or they maybe even create videos in which they say negative stuff about whiskey tubers or whatever. I don't play that game. Not into it. Don't care. This isn't religion. This isn't politics. But there are people who get that, but they hate the New York Yankees. They hate the Dallas Cowboys or whatever other sports team. I hate the Red Sox or whatever. They get all. It's a freaking game, man. Get over it. It's just a freaking beverage. Okay. So he says, Tim Moria says, by the way, Erik, you're not a bendejo, a pinche maybe, but not a bendejo. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, I'm not going to be filling up other than perhaps for the purpose of studying it and understanding Macallan. Macallan's not my go-to quality price ratio. All right. So we all agree on that one. But I do like what they're doing for the world of whiskey. I do like what they're doing for educational whiskey. I like what they're doing for the further advancement of sherry cask whiskeys. And I think they are expertise in cask management and getting the cask that they need to make the quality of the whiskeys. I think they're doing it right. I think they're doing the sherry cask whiskeys right. All right, so we're at the top of the hour, getting close to dinner time. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Next weekend, I'm gonna see. I have to see how it goes. I might be out of town for the next weekend, looking at houses next weekend in the wine country. I don't know. I might create a video and upload it to fill in the spot. I haven't made up my mind yet, so we'll see how that goes. Steve A says, absolutely, I love Macallan, but buying less and less. Yep, the prices are. Let me before it scrolls away. Where'd it go? Shoot. There we go. Absolutely, Eric. Love Macallan, but buying less and less. The prices are just getting too high. Yep, totally agree. All right. Oops. I'm trying to turn these things off. Hide. See, I try to hit hide. What happens is I try to hit hide, and then the next one pops up. All right. So hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. Got to get some ice cream or something because it's really, really hot. It's really, really hot here. It's going to be scorcher. Going to be hitting like 111 this next week. It's going to be in the 90s also. It's going to be really, really hot. So, all righty. So I want to thank everyone for tuning. Hey, First Full Whiskey just dropped to 20. Wow. Wow. Thank you very much, sir. So my little motto I've developed is every time a Glencairn rings, an angel gets its wings. Well, thanks for the 20 spot, man. He says, great stream. Yes, we need to do that stream one day. Love your channel. All right. So I don't even know how the time zones. I don't even know what time zone you're in terms of what time it is. It's coming up on 6 o'clock PM here. I don't know what time it is in New Zealand. We'll have to figure that out, but would absolutely love to do it. By the way, I'm going to tell you, I watch your videos more than once. Obviously you're reaching the newbies, but I'm learning from you in terms of editing, video communication, and trying to improve my own videos. I'm inspired to improve my video content because of your video content. Just got to say that. So, all righty. So, man, you click on one and the next one pops up. All right. So thank you very much. Everyone have a great weekend. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. If anybody watching on the replay has any comments, any questions, anything like that, go ahead and leave them down below. If you're ever in the Highlands, if you're ever up in the area, highly recommend visiting Macallan Distillery, and let's go out with a little bit of rock and roll. Slanjiva.